The Brighton estate, with its sprawling grounds and ivy-covered walls, was a place of both majesty and melancholy. For centuries, it had housed generations of the Brighton family, wealthy landowners with a legacy of both honor and scandal. Yet there was always a certain unease in the air, as though the estate itself bore the weight of untold stories. Emma Brighton had grown up surrounded by these whispers. As a child, she would hear the servants speak in hushed tones about the chamber, a hidden room that no one had seen but everyone believed existed. Her grandfather, Theodore Brighton, would always smile mysteriously whenever Emma asked about it, as if he knew something but was unwilling to share. When Theodore passed away, Emma returned to the estate for the funeral, only to find herself compelled to stay longer. There was something about the place that called to her, something unfinished. While helping to sort through her late grandfather's belongings, Emma discovered a hidden compartment in his old oak desk. She wasn't particularly surprised. Her grandfather had always been a man of secrets, but what she found inside left her both puzzled and intrigued. An envelope, yellowed with age and sealed with the Brighton family crest, rested within the compartment. Emma carefully opened it, revealing a letter written in an elegant hand. The ink was faded, but the words remained legible. "Dearest Edward, there is no way to undo what has been done. The truth lies beneath us now, and it must stay there. If uncovered, it could destroy everything we have built. For the sake of the family, you must keep this secret." There was no signature, and the letter ended abruptly. Emma read it over several times, trying to make sense of its cryptic message. Who was Edward? And what truth had been buried beneath the estate? She knew her family history well enough to know that no one had ever mentioned an Edward Brighton. Driven by curiosity, Emma brought the letter to her father, Henry Brighton. He was a stern, practical man, not given to flights of imagination or fascination with the past. His response was as she expected. "Emma, this is old nonsense. Our family has enough real history without digging up imaginary scandals," he said dismissively. "Leave it alone." But Emma couldn't leave it alone. That night, while the rest of the household slept, she sneaked into the library and began her search. She combed through ancient family records, journals, and photographs, hoping to find some mention of Edward or any clue about the secret mentioned in the letter. After hours of searching, she finally found something. An entry in a faded journal dated 1893. It was written by Edward Brighton, a previously unknown member of the family, and it detailed a series of strange events on the estate. According to Edward, there had been an accident, something involving a young woman named Clara. The details were vague, but it was clear that the family had gone to great lengths to cover up whatever had happened. The journal ended with a chilling line. "We did what we had to, but the past has a way of clawing its way to the surface." Emma's pulse quickened. Was it possible that somewhere beneath the estate lay the key to this century-old mystery? She decided to find out. The next day she explored the basement of the estate. It was a dark, musty space filled with cobwebs and forgotten furniture. Following the vague directions in Edward's journal, she searched for any sign of a hidden passage. Hours passed with no success, and she was beginning to think her search was in vain when her flashlight caught something unusual, a faint outline in the stone wall. With a crowbar in hand, Emma pried at the seam in the wall until it gave way, revealing a narrow passage that led downward. She hesitated for a moment before stepping inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The passage led her to a small underground chamber. In the center of the room was a wooden chest, locked and bound with iron. Emma found a key nearby and opened the chest, revealing its contents. Old documents, a leather-bound journal, and a faded photograph. The photograph was of a family gathering, and standing at the center was a man she had never seen before. He looked remarkably like her grandfather but younger, perhaps in his early 30s. Emma turned her attention to the journal. It was Edward Brighton's, and its pages held the answers she had been seeking. As she read, the story unfolded. In 1893, Clara, a servant in the Brighton household, had fallen in love with Edward. Their love was forbidden, and when Clara became pregnant, the family was scandalized. Fearing disgrace, Edward's father, Charles Brighton, arranged for Clara to be sent away. But Clara never made it out of the estate. One night, during a heated argument, she fell down the grand staircase and died. In their panic, the family buried the truth, literally. Edward had been forced to stay silent, but he had documented everything in his journal, hoping that someday someone would uncover the truth and set things right. Just as Emma finished reading, she heard footsteps echoing in the passageway behind her. She quickly closed the chest and turned to see her father standing at the entrance, his face a mixture of anger and fear. "Emma," he said, his voice low and tense, "you shouldn't have come here." To be continued. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Emma demanded, her voice echoing off the damp stone walls. She clutched Edward's journal tightly in her hand, unwilling to let go of the evidence that had drawn her deeper into the Brighton family's shadowy past. Henry Brighton's face was unreadable, his lips pressed into a thin line as he stepped forward into the chamber. "There are things in this family that were never meant to be uncovered," he said quietly. "Your grandfather swore to keep this secret, just as his father did before him." "Secrets don't stay buried forever," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I found the letter. I found Edward's journal. Don't you see? This isn't just about the past. It's about who we are." Henry sighed deeply, running a hand through his graying hair. "I hoped you wouldn't find this place. Your grandfather and we tried to move on, to keep the family's name untarnished. But I see now that you won't stop until you know everything." He gestured toward the chest. "If you want the truth, I won't stand in your way. But be warned, what you find may not give you the peace you're seeking." Emma hesitated for a moment before kneeling beside the chest. She retrieved another bundle of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. As she carefully untied the bundle, she began to read. The letters were correspondence between Edward and Clara, revealing a love story that had been doomed from the start. "My dearest Clara," one letter read, "I would give anything to be with you, but my family's pride stands in our way. I will find a way, I promise." Emma's heart ached as she imagined the fear and pain Clara must have endured. The story she had pieced together in her mind became clearer. Clara, pregnant and unmarried, had been seen as a threat to the family's reputation. The accident that claimed her life had likely been covered up to prevent scandal, but something still didn't add up. If this was just an accident, why keep it a secret for so long? Emma asked, looking up at her father. Why not tell the truth after all these years? Henry's expression darkened. It wasn't just Clara's death they wanted to hide. There was more. After she died, Edward, he couldn't live with the guilt. He tried to go to the authorities, but my great-grandfather stopped him. In the end, Edward was sent away to a sanatorium, where he lived out the rest of his days in silence. The family made sure no one ever spoke of him again. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. So they silenced him too. Yes, Henry said bitterly. For generations we've lived with the weight of that decision. But no matter how deep we buried it, the truth always threatened to resurface. A sudden thought struck Emma. The journal mentioned something about Clara's child. Did she? Henry's eyes softened. She didn't survive, Emma. The child was lost when she fell. Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she thought of Clara and the life she had been denied. We can't keep this hidden anymore. People deserve to know the truth. Henry hesitated, then slowly nodded. Perhaps you're right. But if we reveal this, it won't just be our family's legacy that's affected. The estate itself, the land, it could all be taken from us. I don't care about the estate, Emma said firmly. I care about doing what's right. As the weight of their conversation settled over them, Emma noticed something unusual in the far corner of the chamber, a small stone tablet half buried in the dirt. She walked over and brushed away the dust, revealing an inscription. Here lies Clara, forgotten but never gone. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes. Edward had buried her here, in the hidden chamber beneath the estate. It was his way of ensuring that she was never truly erased, even if the world above remained unaware of her fate. Henry placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. If you're determined to do this, we'll do it together. But know that once we start, there's no going back. I understand, Emma whispered. But it's time. It's time we brought this story to light. Together, they carefully gathered the documents, photographs, and Edward's journal. Emma knew they would face opposition from the rest of the family, but she was ready. For the first time, she felt a sense of purpose, a calling to set things right, not just for Clara and Edward, but for herself and future generations of Brightons. As they ascended from the chamber, the dawn light filtered through the cracks in the basement walls, casting a soft glow on the dusty floor. Emma took it as a sign. The shadows of the past had lingered for far too long, but now, with the truth in hand, there was a chance for healing and renewal. The mystery of the Brighton family was no longer a burden to be hidden. It was a story waiting to be told. Emma and her father stood on the front steps of the Brighton estate as the morning sun bathed the ancient walls in golden light. The weight of the past was still heavy on their shoulders, but for the first time in years, there was also a glimmer of hope. With Edward's journal, Clara's letters, and the bundle of hidden documents in their possession, they had everything they needed to reveal the truth. "I'll call a family meeting," Henry said, his voice steady but apprehensive. "We need to handle this carefully. The others won't be pleased, but they deserve to know." By noon, members of the extended Brighton family gathered in the grand hall. The tension was palpable as Emma took her place beside her father. Her cousins, uncles, and aunts whispered among themselves, clearly puzzled by the sudden urgency of the gathering. Henry cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I understand this is unexpected, but it concerns something of great importance: our family's legacy." Before anyone could interrupt, Emma stepped forward, holding Edward's journal. "I know many of you have heard stories about a hidden chamber beneath the estate. I found it." Gasps rippled through the room, and Emma pressed on before anyone could react further. "Inside, I discovered Edward Brighton's journal, letters, and documents that reveal a secret our family has kept hidden for over a century." Her cousin Charles, a sharp-eyed lawyer, crossed his arms. "A secret? What are you talking about?" Emma recounted the story, the forbidden love between Edward and Clara, the accident, and the cover-up. She shared excerpts from the letters and passages from Edward's journal. The room grew quieter with each word, and by the time she finished, a somber stillness had settled over the gathered family. "This is madness," Charles muttered. "Why dredge up something that happened so long ago? No one even remembers Clara." "But we should," Emma countered, her voice firm. "She was part of our family's history, and she deserves to be remembered. This isn't about blame. It's about acknowledging what happened and honoring the lives that were lost." An older aunt, Margaret, who had always been fond of family lore, spoke up. "I remember hearing whispers about Edward when I was a child. They said he went mad after losing someone he loved. I never knew it was true until now." Henry placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. Emma's right. We've carried this burden for too long. It's time to let it go, to let the truth be known. After a long and tense silence, Charles sighed. Fine. But what do you propose we do? Emma had already thought about this. We restore Clara's memory. We give her a proper resting place and dedicate a part of the estate to her and Edward's story. And we make sure future generations of Brightons know the truth. There were murmurs of agreement, though some family members still looked uneasy. Eventually, it was decided. They would hold a memorial for Clara and Edward, and the hidden chamber would be preserved as a family archive. A week later, under a clear blue sky, the Brighton family gathered in the garden for the memorial. Emma stood beside a newly erected stone monument engraved with Clara's name. Fresh flowers adorned the base, and the air was filled with a sense of solemn reflection. As Emma spoke about Clara and Edward, she felt a wave of peace wash over her. The secrets of the past had been laid bare, and in their place, there was now an opportunity for healing. After the ceremony, Emma and her father stood by the monument, watching as the rest of the family paid their respects. You did something important today, Henry said quietly. Something I didn't have the courage to do. I'm proud of you. Emma smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. We did it together. Henry nodded. What now? I think it's time to start a new chapter, Emma said. One where we embrace our history, the good and the bad, and move forward with honesty. In the weeks that followed, Emma worked tirelessly to preserve the documents she had found and create a detailed account of the Brighton family's history. She even contacted a local historian who helped her compile the story into a book. The book, titled Clara's Legacy, The Untold Story of the Brighton Family, became a treasured record not only for the family, but also for the local community. The Brighton estate, once shrouded in mystery, became a place of learning and reflection. Visitors came to hear the story of Clara and Edward, and for the first time in decades, the estate felt alive with hope and purpose. As winter turned to spring, Emma found herself standing once again by Clara's monument, this time with a sense of closure. The past, though painful, had been confronted, and in doing so, she had found a new path forward, not just for herself, but for her entire family. The Brighton family's buried secrets had finally been unearthed, and with them came the chance for a brighter future. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more stories like this, hit that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let me know on which topic you would like to see stories next. And check out these other stories you might enjoy. See you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.